and during any type of large-scale disaster, medical or otherwise. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're just about to conclude this wonderful panel that we've had here. But two announcements. Number one, after Q&A, we're going to have some food out there, so please just be prepared for that. And the other thing is we are going to have questions and answers. And if you're an undergraduate student, if you ask a wonderful question, we'll give you something. So please make sure that you ask questions. Okay, so now it's for you all. If you have any question to our panelists or presenters, please go ahead and do so. Go ahead.
With regards to I'm sorry, I have to go back on this. The second to last presentation, you had mentioned genomics within your research, and I was curious as to how you apply that within it.
Okay, that's an excellent question. So basically, how we apply genomics, the medication that the patients were taking is called buprenorphine. And the way, whenever you take a medication, you usually have to take it every so often, right? Because your body basically is trying to get rid of it. It's like some kind of foreign chemical, so it's trying to remove it. So what usually happens, not all the time, but a lot of the time, you have enzymes in your liver that are the ones that are removing the drug from your body. So it happens to be that buprenorphine, there's a particular enzyme in your liver that gets rid of the drug. And for the population of people that we were studying, the majority of them basically had a mutation in that enzyme that made their enzyme work a lot faster than a normal person. So whereas somebody could take 24 milligrams in a day according to what the FDA guidelines are and be okay, they could just burn through the drug really quickly in 24 hours. So if you expect 24, just think of it like somebody, you know the same idea, but think of it like if you know somebody who has a high metabolism and they can eat a lot of food and they're okay, but if you are kind of okay, you can eat less food and you're still, So for somebody who has a high metabolism, if they eat like somebody who doesn't, they'll be starving before the next meal. It's kind of the same concept with a different twist to it. So it's they basically run out of the drug in their body midway through the dosing period. So they would start having cravings for the for the opioid in the middle, and so then that would lead to treatment issues. They would end up using substances. And if you're thinking of this you're dealing with heroin, so people, when they inject heroin, they might also get HIV, they might also get hepatitis, which is a very expensive condition to treat. You can see that not treating the person adequately can lead to a really high increase in healthcare costs, lead to issues with a person's health, they can get sick. So the whole idea is you want to make sure you're using the genomics to see if you are one of those people who can burn through the drug very quickly, then you want to give the person a higher dose. So that way that they can get through that dosing period without going into withdrawal, and then they'll have better treatment outcomes.
Wonder, sir, let me just add one thing to that for you. When you think of treatment, you think of drugs and genomics. In a lot of cases, because we are in North America, we think of insurance, right? You hear about insurance a lot in the news. What happens in our healthcare system is that if you can't afford to pay for treatment, then you don't get treatment for the most part. Well, in the insurance system, let's assume you're on Medicaid or some other type of insurance, the FDA determines the maximum dose you could take, okay? Clinically, that's what they approve it as. If that person has that genetic polymorphism that Dr. Baker talked about, that person will then require more than the maximum dose. So it becomes a policy and an insurance issue. So the person would be undertreated by the mere fact of their genetics. And as such, if we enshrine genomics or pharmacogenomics into medical policy and insurance policy, and make it an individualized thing, then we can get better treatment outcomes. Sure.
Okay, one thing I forgot to add, this particular genetic mutation that we saw in our population, you hardly see it in European populations. And what often happens when people do make those like genetic kind of tests, a lot of times they underpin it with a population of European ancestry. So if you're looking at something like this, you're like, okay, we should do genetics for treatment, and you don't include populations of the African diaspora, you might miss out on genetic mutations that may impact people that look like us. So that's why we wanted to do the research in that particular population, and that's how we ended up seeing that particular mutation.
Thank you. Very good. Go ahead, please.
I would like to hear more from my colleague, Dr. Segun, on Edward Wilmot Blyden.
Yeah. Blyden, I think, by the way, is a fascinating character who lived from about 1832 to 1912.
Oh, microphone, please.
Yes. Yep. Okay. All right.
He's an artist, to tell you.
Yeah. Yeah. Blyden, especially by the way, from the perspective of rhetoric, you know, to me is a fascinating person. As I said, he lived from 1832 to 1912, you know. Coming from the West Indies to America, then denied, you know, university entrance, he went to Liberia, all right? But what's so interesting about him, right, is that he was definitely against modern thought. He comes out explicitly, he says, I'm not a modern, you know, there's nothing I can learn from the moderns, right? So he goes to the ancients, you know? Rather interesting. What we call Western civilization has two roots, right? One is the Judeo-Christian root, and the other is the Greek root. And he uses both of them. He used the Christian root in terms of providence, right? My friend Patrick Henry calls him a providential historicist, right? And all he means by that is that he was not a poet in that sense, or, you know, let's say a literary person, you know. He was more, you know, he did more work in socio-political thought and black history and black studies, you know. So he calls him that, all right? The reason he calls him that is because Blyden seems to explain what happens to black people, right, through the idea of providence, right? That's why I call it, you know, a providential historicist, all right? What I didn't get to go into, right, is that it seems to me, by the way, that what Blyden was doing, right, was using providence as a rhetorical trope, all right, to address the problems of black people, all right? So in other words, you know, he would go through all this, or, you know, go through the situation after black folk and say, well, we suffer this, we suffer that. He said, well, it's a school, God is education, this and da, all right? Blyden was an extremely educated man, right? Not only in the class, I mean, just extremely educated, all right? So it doesn't make sense to me that he would, you know, simply, you know, try to explain things in this way. It doesn't make any sense, all right? I believe what he was doing, given the situation of black folks in the 19th century, all right? What he was doing was was giving an account of the situation of black folks and how to overcome it without being beaten down, so to speak, right, by all the negativity, all right? And the second group that he uses, right, goes to the Greek root, right, where he was trained in all these classical languages, all right? And so what he says, you know, when I go to the ancient languages and the ancient cultures, I don't see anything negative against black man, right? And that's why I'm sure in sort of sense, you know, right, you know, he's a fantastic rhetorician, right, in terms of how he was able to utilize the different components of the culture, right, to solve problems, right, and to overcome some of the obstacles facing black folks.
Okay. We have some time for questions.
Something on the stage.
Something on stage. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Just a quick comment on a wonderful presentation by Elizabeth on the, I think you executed a very good framing analysis of those stories. But just one more thing that I think you may want to look at is you may also want to look at labels of controversies that journalists tend to introduce. Because what we found is that journalists, when covering a story, when they want to create a particular narrative, they tend to create certain phrases, catchphrases, that they then use in the story over time. So they will create those phrases, for example, Watergate, and that will become a catchphrase, or the Monica Lewinsky scandal, and that itself will become a catchphrase that they will utilize in the headlines and captions to market those stories. So over time, the readers or media audience come to associate that particular phrase as newsworthiness, and then it becomes easier for media then to create a particular narrative around those particular labels of controversy. So that's something that I think you may want to look at.
Yeah, I have one observation and another is a question. My observation to the lady in the middle is that you made mention about the things about how people get treated and with opiates or what is that?
Opioids.
Yeah, in the Western world, but my observation is that in Africa, people don't admit that they are sick until they cannot move, and that has been a lot of problem. And the reason being that people who are in the rural areas is even worse, but people in the cities, they want to go for checkup, but when they get to the hospital, the first thing they ask them is to bring certain amount of money, and if they cannot get that, then they go back. So people are afraid of coming, even those who realize that they're sick, they are very scared to come forward that they are sick to get treatment. But the ones who are in the rural areas and other places, they don't feel that they are sick unless they cannot move. And that is not a new thing, it's been forever. So what can be done about that to educate them, even though if they cannot see the doctor immediately, what can they do? That's my first thing.
When we look at Africa, often we think, we say Africa, but Africa is not a monolith. We have 54 countries across the continent. But when we do make national policy, what we do have to take into consideration is culture. We have to take into consideration geography. We have to take into consideration the government incentive to get stuff done. We have to really shift the frame when it comes to things like communicable or non-communicable diseases. Just a point of reference, some of these diseases that we're referring to, we often think of Ebola and bushmeat and all those things, and people are very verbose and it sells news, right? But when you look at what those diseases cost the society, it pales in comparison to what the things like diabetes and hypertension and so on cost the society. So when governments are making global policy, we have to create incentives within the communities to drive the behavior. So if I am from the countryside and I operate under chieftaincy, if that chief within that group is not included in the whole policy discussion, I know that I'm not going to have the outcomes that I'm looking for. In the case of the inner city, talking about opioids, right? Because people have to work, and many of these drugs give you a high that makes you think you can do whatever for whenever. And because people, from what I've seen in much of the inner cities on the continent, folks work and they're very industrious. And if you're sitting, that means you're not earning. So whatever will drive my earnings is what I'm going to do. So I think Ghana is a little bit ahead of the game now with its national policy on mental health. They passed the policy on mental health in 2012. It sat for a while, it's now being implemented. And if we move the incentives to the outcomes that we're looking for, then it would change. Otherwise, it would not change at all because people are going to stay doing what it is they're doing. And often, we approach folks on the continent, not just Africa, but different places, we approach them as learned individuals. We know when, in actuality, we need to learn from the individuals and do ethnographic research before attempting to implement or suggest policy.
Very good. Any other questions?
Yeah, the second one is for the bushmeat thing. I like the phrase decolonizing the bushmeat thing. I lived in Liberia for 3 years. I was in Liberia when the Nigerian Civil War started, and the week that I got back to Nigeria was when the Civil War stopped. What I noticed is that there's no much, when we say bushmeat, it's a broad thing, like you said. But in Liberia, monkey is very common. And then a lot of people, especially the crew and Bassa people, that's their main food. Other Liberian tribes, they like fish and other things. But the thing is, like, when this Ebola virus thing came, it spread all over the place, and people are even afraid, not only the bushmeat, but so many things they are afraid to eat. I will confess to you that whenever I go to Africa, whenever I go to Nigeria in particular, I don't eat meat, like beef or anything. I always tell them I want bushmeat. But the last time I visited, I couldn't see any bushmeat because people were afraid. They were not buying bushmeat, and if you find it, it's too expensive, you will not want it. So, but the thing is that they, like you said, they find it not only that it's not the bushmeat that is the center of the Ebola. There's so many things that is involved in it, and banning bushmeat is anathema because we grow up eating bushmeat. We grow up hunting for bushmeat. We kill rabbits and grass cutter and all those antelopes and all that. Those are bushmeats. So I'm 66 years old now, and I was 28 when I came to the United States. All those years I ate bushmeat, nothing happened. So that's the thing.
Okay. Before you answer that or respond to that, I also wanted to mention what you said, Professor, about that if you go to the hospital in Africa, you have to pay money before they treat you. I think that's true even here. I mean, I've never seen anybody go and get medicine or be treated before they have they show insurance or they pay. So I think that's a universal thing, especially in this case.
I know, but here we have alternatives. But back there, a person who doesn't earn $10 a week, and you told him to go and bring $500 for treatment, where would he get it from? And we don't have health benefits in Nigeria like we have it here.
Just for clarity purposes, This is a policy question, certainly. How we do it here in the United States, we have the emergency legislation. So if I show up at a hospital, you're required to treat me whether it is I'm funded or not. It's about the maintenance of long-term care that